another time and another place, but it's not as simple as a memory.
Are we good? All thumbs up, yay, around the room. Well, welcome everybody to my favorite place on the whole wide world, Colorado Sound. I'd like to begin with a moment of silence. Thank you. Again, welcome. We're here to celebrate Steve Kayden. Beautiful Steve Kayden. Before we get going, I want to say a couple of thank yous. First of all, to Kevin for allowing us to do this here. This place has been very, very miraculous for me, and I've had many incredible experiences come out of these buildings, I should say. And one of those was Steve Kayden. I don't meet him if I'm not here. And so, as you'll discover later on, I'm very thankful. But Kevin, hosting this, really, thank you so much for letting us have the space. You know, he could have given it to somebody else. He's got 2 sessions going on next door. This place is always, you know, I can't even get in here to do anything anymore. You know, we had a meeting the other day. Well, you know, can you do June 1st? And that was not the calendar. We actually have a singer named June. And so, we do. So thank you, Kevin, very, very much. I also want to thank Nick, back on the console over here. Nick's worked very, very hard this week. He put together the slideshow and the video and the audio work today. Thank you so much, Nick. I want to thank Justin, who's back in Mission Control. If you take a little run through the front side of the building, Justin's out there running everything for the live stream. And it was a little precarious because, you know, even this morning there was a problem and Justin solved it, you know. So thank you, Justin, very much. I know I can't see you, but thanks, buddy. Up in the crow's nest is Nick. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for being here and helping out, man. I really appreciate it. Also want to thank my great friend Amy, who brought us the nosh. It's quite a spread, and I really appreciate her being here. Thank you. Amy makes good eats. That's all I can say about that. Thank you. And I want to thank all of you for being here. I know that Steve's extended family who are watching, and Mary Ellen, very, very appreciative for you all being here. So thank you very, very, very much. Mary Ellen, you good?
See if I can do it. All right. So as Rick said, I'm Steve's sister, Mary Ellen, from New Jersey. I'm the youngest of the 4 Kayden kids. My brother Eddie's a year and a half older. He lives in California. Steve was 5 years older than me, and my sister Rosemarie lives in Virginia. She's 7.5 years older. So as Rick said, thanks, everybody, for coming today. Thank you, Kevin. I already cried all over Kevin. And Rick, thank you so much. And Justin and Nick and Amy, everybody who helped plan this and hold this beautiful celebration for my brother. Thank you for being his friend. We really appreciate it and appreciate how much you cared and loved for our brother. So I thought I'd tell you a little sister story about her older brother. So my story with Steve is threefold. Part 1, I grew up with Steve until I was about 15 years old. And for many of those years, he was very quiet and I was very loud. Between my brother Eddie and I don't think Steve ever got a word in edgewise. Then he joined a band, Clear Blue, and they practiced in our garage, and they were loud. And I quietly watched them play. Steve listened to crazy music and had blacklight posters all over his room And I still remember he had all these albums on the floor. And the first one was the Black Sabbath album with the witch woman on the front of it. And I would run by his room like this because it scared me. So all of my friends, as I was getting older and through that time period, were listening to Donny Osmond, David Cassidy, the Archies. And in my house, we were listening to King Crimson, Gentle Giant, Cream, and Black Sabbath. So Steve also introduced me to Todd Rundgren, and he has been a lifelong favorite shared by both of us. We've seen him in concert together, listened to him all the time. So then in 1977, Steve declared to the family that he was moving to Colorado. He was actually moving with Kimberly. And we, to say the least, we were all shocked. So, part two. In September of 1981, I was fortunate enough to go from Rutgers University to UNC Greeley. And I was part of a college student exchange program. So I was able to visit Steve. I'd come down to Denver, hang out with him and Trapper, see my nephew, Kimberly. Yeah, and Trapper, I hope you're watching today. And reconnect with my brother. You know, there's a time period there, so he was out here, I was doing my thing. I went back to Rutgers, did my senior year, graduated, and 10 days later I moved back here. And I moved in with Stephen Trapper into the crazy little Gladys house. And Kevin, I found the Gladys house yesterday. I took pictures. Actually, it doesn't look bad. So this place was just crazy, but we had so many fun times there. And I lived in Colorado for the next 5 years. I bought a house over by Sloan's Lake. Steve moved in with me. Eric spent time with us. Went out to hear him play. And it was great because I could go out by myself and the band always took care of me. So I really took care of Steve a lot, as a lot of you did, and didn't realize at the time really how much we took care of him. So part three, after our dad died, 1988, I moved back to New Jersey. Steve stayed in Colorado. He later moved to Florida, but then he came back to New Jersey in 2015. And that was 2 weeks before our mom had a pretty catastrophic stroke. And he lived there with me for a little bit. We would go and see our mom all the time till she died in 2018. So that was really, really special, and we were able to share that. As I said, he lived with me for a little while. Then he went up to North Jersey to live, but still would come down and visit all the time. So got to spend a lot of time with my brother. So here comes the hard part. Steve was my brother, and he was truly my best friend. He drove me crazy, but he was sweet, and he was kind, and he was a better musician than I ever realized. And he was loved by more people than he ever realized. And that's what I'm incredibly sad about, that I don't think he really realized how people loved him. I wish he had felt that he was loved. And all of you here today, people watching, the outpouring of love that I've gotten just shows how special he was. So thank you all for coming today. And for Steve, I encourage you to appreciate the gifts that people have in your life. Tell people how special they are to you, because it's just, life is just too short. Steve is with my mom and dad now, and Lori, and Ted Anlauer, and Nate Winger, and Dean, and all the other special people that he loved and who loved him and who are no longer with us. And they're playing the best music and dancing to the best songs in the best place of all. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I like to begin by saying I would never presume for an instant that I was Steve's closest friend. I see a lot of people in here that spent a lot of time with Steve and loved Steve and people that Steve loved. And so all I'm going to do here is try and honor him appropriately from my vantage point. And I had a vantage point. As I began to think about this, I wanted to find one word that personified Steve. A word not because of his mega music talent, we all know about that, but something that really personified him as a human being, a man, a brother, a friend. And that word was really easy for me to come up with, and that word was lovable. It's funny that Mary Ellen should say that because he was lovable. How could you not love this guy? You know, I mean, short of him having a note stuck on his shirt that said, "Love me," you know, that was his magnetism. You know, you just couldn't help but love the guy. He was a teddy bear wrapped up in a Steve suit. And so he was truly, truly lovable. And I think that's what we can all remember about him. He was also one hell of a musician. He was a mega, mega talent. And of course, we all got to experience that in one form or another. Of course, being a mega talent, as we would soon discover, it was accompanied by a lot of quirky behaviors. And the one that was displayed all the time was his complete disregard for punctual timing. Dude was always late. Always. Sometimes in very critical situations, like for a live TV broadcast or a gig that we're playing at the Evergreen Lake House that's paying us $5,000 for, 90-minute set, and he just kind of comes strolling in an hour late, and he was late all the time. And in fact, as you notice, we started late. Well, that's deliberate because I probably said it 1,000 times, Steve Kayden can't even be on time for his own funeral. And here we are. Come on, guys.
Late on cue.
There you go. Steve was the epitome of artistic genius. He was astroplaning in a world that was all his own. He was in a world that was all his own. To say the cliche, he marched to the beat of a different drummer, was the truth about him. But when he did arrive, when he would finally show up, the bar of excellence went through the roof. And the example I can give you in our particular world of arrival was that when I was only working with Norm Peterson, I was the greyhound chasing the rabbit going around the track. When Charlie joined us, and it was the three of us, I was on a Stingray bicycle stuck in the mud chasing Secretariat. When Steve joined us, it was like a rocket ship took off to Mars and I couldn't even get out of the chair. That's the level of excellence that he brought to our group. And I really, really, really appreciated him for that excellence. Steve's tardiness, I'm sorry, the whole thing is all about the fact that, and I see Stevie Ray here, and I just have to tell you that, it was almost weekly that I'd get a phone call or Stevie Ray would grab me and take me over to the corner of the rehearsal room and go, "Are you going to do something about this, Rick? You live with the guy. Do something," It was kind of like, and everybody else kind of chimed in every once in a while too, but that was kind of Steve, what was I supposed to do? What could I do? I tried all sorts of stuff, and yes, he did live with me, and that's another point I'd like to make is to his mega talent, in the almost 4 years he lived with me, I never once saw or heard him practice. And Doug made a great point. Thank you the other day for spending all that time with me. I thought I was just coming over to get a drive, dude. I ended up hanging at your house for forever. But Doug made a great point, is that, Steve didn't have to practice because of the enormous body of work he did through his life of playing all this other music, everything from King Crimson and whatnot to classical stuff. So he didn't have to practice. Not only was he mega talented, but it was inherent in his entire psyche about doing music. He was that excellent. Somewhere in the winter of 1982, very cold day, extremely cold day, I remember it vividly. Kevin and I were next door working on, it had to be a Saint Germain thing. I think we were mixing or something, and we decided we were going to go out to dinner, maybe get a couple of cocktails. And we leave here and get in my car. Kevin says, we've got to make a stop on the way. And we stop at this little house about 20 blocks from here, the Gladys house. Little frame house, it's very small, kind of house where you could plug the vacuum in one outlet and do the whole house. That sort of vibe, right? And we go in, and Kevin kind of keeps walking, and I'm closing the door. And I hear this voice from, it's kind of dark in this room, and hi, Kevin. I was like, what the heck? And, I'm standing at the end of this sofa, and there's like this big lump, looks like a pile of blankets. And at the other end of the sofa is just this little round face. And it was Steve. And that's when I met him. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like going, man, this is hilarious, and he just... So we get in the car, and we drive off, and as I'm prone to do whenever I find something humorous, I ask Kevin, I go, so what the hell's up with that guy, And Kevin goes, oh, that's Steve, man. He's this and that and talented and blah, 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 great guitar. And he and Trapper just did this incredible project. And, you guys should probably work together. Little did we know. A few years later, and I was talking to Norm on the phone about this last night because I don't remember if it was deliberate and calculated or if it was just accidental. But we wander into this club right down the street here called PJ Good Vibes. And that's kind of unusual for us because we were all from the south side of town. We were Bengals and Sharks and all that junk down there on Havana and Glendale and whatnot. And there's this great band playing at Cinema. And, I was just like sitting there. And at the time, we were looking for the right bass player. And we had kind of this revolving door of guys that we were trying here and there and whatnot. And all I can think of, and maybe, I don't know, were you there? Were you with us that night? I know it was Norm and I, but I don't remember. I thought you were too. And I must have just been sitting there staring at Steve like Clark looking at the Griswold family Christmas tree out in woods. Just like, wow, who's that guy? And I hadn't put the two together that was the dude on the couch, which was really funny. And we finally got to that. But Steve came and joined our group. And again, like I said, the bar of excellence went right through the roof. He was beautiful. He was incredible. The guy just, like I said, he never had to practice. He learned the tunes. It was just instinctual for him. I loved recording with Steve. He was just always prepared, always came in. He was just aces, and he just knew what to do all the time. When Steve moved in with me, he brought a couple of gifts that I'll treasure. First thing was he brought an old Yamaha 12-string guitar, and he never touched the thing. It just always sat there. And I became fascinated with it. I'd never played a 12-string guitar at that point in my life. I'd always played regular 6-string guitars and stuff, and I became fascinated with it, And so I started messing with it, and it really became kind of a part of something that I really loved hearing. Of course, learning to tune a 12-string guitar when nobody shows you how, you learn the hardest lesson of all is that the high G string gets tuned last. Unless you want to have a big scar across your face from when it pops off. So there you go. If anybody wants to know a lesson about 12-string guitar, high C, G string last. The other thing Steve brought that was really important to me through all those years was he was loyal. Anything I asked him to do, to play on, hey, I'm doing this project that, would you do the bass part for me, please, whatever. Would you sing this for me, whatever. He was loyal. He had my six all the time, and I really, really, really appreciated that. That was something very important to me. There was one gift he gave to some of us in this room that we will never forget, that we will always, always remember Steve for. And that was a Sunday afternoon in October. Stevie, I still can't figure out if it was 88 or 89. I've tried. The timeline back then, by the way, as I'm looking at Jeff and everybody who's kind of was in those rooms with us at Codesco and at the spa and whatnot, and we were just grinding away. But there was a Sunday afternoon in October, and as we always did, we rehearsed on Sundays as well as a few days during the week. And clock and calendar got to Steve Kayden again because we showed up to find a note on the door, taped to the door. And the penmanship to this note bled emotion, raw emotion. He was mad. And the note contained the four indelible words we'll always remember Steve for. Hey guys, what gives? Exclamation point. If you're going to cancel rehearsal, it'd be nice if you told everyone. I waited around for a half an hour. See ya. And we all looked at each other and started laughing. Still do, yep. Because it was the last Sunday of October, daylight savings. And Steve didn't realize that the clocks went back. And so I think we went to dinner or something like that, and we couldn't stop laughing about it. And this is before cell phones, so we couldn't get a hold of him or anything like that. When I finally caught up to him, this is the beautiful and the hilarious part of this whole thing, is that when I caught up to him, he was still mad. Even after I told him, dude, this isn't on us, this is on you. And he's just, I was like, what in the world and stuff? And then I realized that because Steve was who he was, and that, anger wasn't really part of who he was at all, he just wasn't good at being mad. He didn't know that you could shut it off, And it was just really, it was kind of, oh wow, he just doesn't know about this, He's never been like this pissed at anything before. And yeah, fall back, and it was October, and he missed it. And so, for us, whenever anybody says Steve Kayden, we all kind of it's just a harmony almost with us. Hey guys, what gives? But the piece to Steve that I think we can all agree upon that made him lovable was that he possessed something that I can't. I just know I can't. I can't possess this quality that he had. I know because I know myself too well, and I'm just the way I am. I'm too competitive. I'm too whatever. But Steve had an authentic humility. It was pure, it was natural, and it was honest. He was probably the most humble person I've ever met that could possess that kind of talent, that level of mega talent. And he did not want to be in the spotlight. As we had him front the band for a year, and pretty sure he hated it. He hated it. Okay, thank you. Somebody is in agreement with me. Yeah, he hated it. He was not one for accolades. He was not one for the spotlight. I would say he was a terrible interview. That's just not who he was. He was so humble. And I believe that's why he was so lovable. September 6th was the last day, this past September 6th, the last night that I spoke to Steve live on the phone. he was kind of terrified. He was polarized by the things that were going on in the world. And it was really, really sad to hear this man that was part of my life for so long, that was so creative and so just this vibrant, glowing ball of genius, to be in this state. And I probably spent about an hour and a half on the phone with him, telling him, Steve, you know, there are things in life you can control and things you can't. And that bullshit that you're seeing on TV, you can't control any of that. You got to turn that off, man. That's what you can control. You can control the click of turning it off or putting it on another channel. I mean, come on, there's Friends episodes running 24/7. You can, you know, are you kidding me? And I thought at the end of that conversation that I'd talked him in off the ledge. He was like, you know what, Rick, you're right. And I said, man, go pick up a guitar and start, you know, go back to who you really are, what you were made to be. And he agreed with me. He said, yeah. Well, I awoke the next morning. Obviously, he was in New Jersey, so he's 2 hours ahead of me, and he sent me a text, and he said, man, thank you for being my friend, but I just can't shut it off. I got to know what's going on. I have to know what's happening. And I knew right then and there that this moment was going to come faster than I ever wanted it to be. I love Steve. I can safely say lovingly that Steve F. Kayden a lot of times was F. Steve Kayden for me, okay? But the sad part is that the only time that he was ever early was in his exiting of this dimension. If anybody else would like to say something, please do so. Volunteers?
I think you summed it up pretty good.
Well, in closing, again, I'd just like to thank everybody. Thank you all for being here. One of the beautiful things about an establishment like this and the art that we share, and I see so many people in here that I've shared art with, and I'm so grateful for all of you, is that it's eternal. So this is a lofty way of saying it, but just like Randy Rhoads, just like John Lennon, just like Prince, Steve will be here with us always. He will always be here because we have him recorded. Nick?
Another time and another place, but it's not as simple as a memory. Now I realize at last you're the spirit from my past, and I remember the words you said to me. I will be there waiting on the darker side of your soul, reaching out my hand to pull you through. Time, all the emotions are still the same. Yeah, I've been waiting on the dark
Mary Ellen just wanted to remind you that there's a sign-in kind of, what do we call that, a registry book, whatever?
If you have any fun memories, anything.
Oh, I got a lot to put in that thing. There won't be room for anybody else.
And some little cards, some little remembrance cards.
Okay. Well, again, thank you everybody for being here. Please hang out. We've got plenty of food, and it's good to see everybody talking to each other and sharing stories. That was pretty beautiful. So thank you very much.
operative, international fugitive, faceless, nameless, no identity. I've been MIA since '83. Coded message, it comes classified. It reads, make it look like suicide. That's right. I am the president's man. Oh, one shot is all I've got to dust the burning fuse. There's a high price when I'm precise. There's no time to lose. Working down from the agency, intelligence reports conspiracy. There's a desperate nation under martial law, where a ruthless madman plans his coup d'etat. A single bullet maintains peace. Another job for my expertise. That's right. I am the president's man. Oh, one shot is babe, how many bridges I got to cross? How many times must I explain myself? Or can I talk to the walls? Or can I talk to the walls? How many times must I say I love you before you finally understand? Well, I want you to be my forever woman. I'm trying to be your forever man. I'm trying to be your forever man. How many times must I say I love you before you finally understand? Well, I want you to be my forever woman. Well, I'm trying to be your forever man. Said I'm trying to be your forever man. Forever man, forever man, forever man. Forever man, forever man, forever man. I'm trying to be your forever man. Forever man, forever man, forever man. Forever man, forever man, forever man. Forever man, forever man, forever man. I'm trying to be your forever man. I'm trying to be your forever man. Forever man, forever man, forever man. Forever man, forever man, forever man. Forever man, forever man, forever man. I'm trying to be your forever man. Said I'm trying to be your forever man.
Detente, world peace, all that good stuff. Disarmament, yeah. Well, I have to send this one out to Judy. 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 Who asks for it about 4 times a night. This is her favorite song, isn't it, Steve? Something about Beatles in her box turns her on. I don't know. It's really weird, man. It's a weird thing. I don't know. You have to ask her about it. She got standing on the wall, Beatles in her box, lads in the hall, landing in a locket, standing on the wall, Beatles in her box, lads in the hall, before.
He's a chicken. Yeah.
Now we're gonna slow it down once again. And a nice slow dance on this trip.
It's a little too slow.